Developments in the investigation after a young mother was murdered. Queen Ashby was killed early last month, and today police finally named a suspect. Our Lauren Despirito tracking the investigation in Aurora. Laura, even with the new information, her friends tell you they have a lot of questions.
This can't be true. Like, I knew she was missing, but I was just hoping she was going to come home soon, you know, safe, not harmed or nothing.
These new developments come after weeks of investigating, and just as friends and family plan to gather here at Overland High School, her old school, to remember and honor her life.
March 7th, 1997. The world would make way for Queen Ashby. She would be born to her mother, Tiffany, and her father, Irdis. The place that she called home would be Aurora, Colorado. When Queen was younger, her parents would figure out that the relationship just wasn't for them, and they would separate. But by the time that Queen was 9 years old, her mother would remarry. She would marry a guy who goes by the name of Chantrell Riles. Chantrell would step up and fill the role as a stepfather. Growing up, Queen was an only child. And with being an only child, it's safe to say that she became the center of attention, a person that their parents could focus all their time and energy into. Aurora, Colorado was the place of her birth, but it's also where she was raised, and she would receive her education there. She would slowly grow from her elementary days into the middle school days, before making a transition to Overland High School. While in school, she's described as smart, funny, someone with a cheery attitude. With her upbeat personality, she garnered the attention from people around her. She quickly attracted friends and also grew close to her teachers. While attending Overland, she was a cheerleader, but she also had a love for art. She enjoyed drawing, and when she wasn't occupied with that, she was busy teaching herself how to play guitar. She was known as being the person you could always catch with a smile on their face. She was also open-armed. She was ready and willing to accept anyone as a friend. And if you were down and out and needed help, she would be there for you. In May of 2015, Queen Ashby would walk the stage and she would graduate from Overland High School. It wouldn't be long after graduation before she would start an entirely new chapter of her life. Shortly after graduating, she would come to find that she was pregnant. At that moment, her plans of college and everything else would be placed on hold because she was about to bring a life into this world. That day would come on October 31st of 2016. It would be on this day that she would welcome her daughter into this world, and she would name her Duchess. She would bring forth this child with a guy who goes by the name of Jerron McMillan. He was a guy that Queen had met back in her junior year of high school, but now they were beginning a family together. To help take care of her daughter, Queen would work a number of jobs. Her specialty was customer service, but although she was busy with her own priorities, she always made time for her family. She especially enjoyed Wednesday nights. It was their self-proclaimed family night, where they would either eat or watch movies, or just enjoy each other's company. With the family being so close, it seemed out of the ordinary in April of 2017 when Queen would go missing. At the time of her disappearance, her 6-month-old daughter was in care of family, but when people tried to reach her, no one could, and repeated attempts to call her phone would be met with a voicemail. In due time, Queen would be found, but it wasn't the way that people hoped. April 8th, 2017. A motorist is passing by a mountain line area near Clear Creek County. It's an area that's located about 30 miles west of Denver. While driving in the rural area, the motorist would spot something to the side of the road that seemed odd. It looked to be an object that was wrapped in something, but the object was in the shape of a human body. With the passerby being curious about the object, he would immediately contact the authorities. When the police arrived on the scene, they would confirm the motorist's suspicion. They would observe a victim, someone who was double wrapped, first inside of a green army blanket, with a gray tarp that was on top. This would be enclosed using duct tape. When the medical examiner arrived on the scene and they began to undo the wrapping, they would immediately notice the dry remnants of a red substance. After further inspecting the victim, they would come to find that the victim seemed to have suffered a gunshot wound. As they carefully inspected the victim, they would only find one wound inside of the head region near the temple. By now, The area had been taped off, and it was being further analyzed, but it was clear whatever transpired didn't happen in that spot. To even further complicate the situation, the victim had no ID and no personal belongings. By the time the gurney was rolled out and the crime scene tape was removed, they were no closer to identifying the person. In light of the situation, they would have to turn to the media in hopes to generate leads that would release a description of the victim. She was described as a biracial female between the ages of 15 and 25. She had black hair, along with black weave extensions, and her ears were pierced twice. Along with the description, they would release a virtual sketch. They were hoping that this picture would lead to an identification. Police have now released a sketch of the victim, and although it's only a sketch, you can still see the pain in the eyes, an anonymous face that seemed to be crying out for help. This sketch would be accompanied by a piece of clothing that the victim was wearing, a black t-shirt. It was in fact a rather unique t-shirt. It pictured Marilyn Monroe holding a couple of items. Due to the nature of that photo, I won't be airing it in its entirety, but you can kind of get the gist of it. With the sketch being released, it would generate several leads. These leads were deemed credible by the authorities, so they followed up on every one, and by the end of the research, and through fingerprint analysis, they would identify the victim as 20-year-old Queen Ashby. Queen had previously been cross-referenced with missing persons, but she didn't pop up because her family never reported her missing, at least officially. But at the same time, she had changed lately. She had fallen into the wrong crowd, and she wasn't herself. I'm assuming that they thought she was merely out living life, and she would turn up soon. But sadly, that wasn't the case. They would now be forced to deal with the harsh reality that Queen Ashby was now deceased.
One mystery leads to another in Clear Creek County. Investigators have identified the woman found dead on the side of the road near Idaho Springs as 20-year-old Queen Ashby from Aurora. And you can see her picture there on the left, compared with the computer-generated sketch. That one's on the right. Now, deputies have not said how she died, but they are treating this as a homicide.
Just as the authorities identified the victim, they were about to have more on their plate, because it turns out that Queen Ashby had a friend. This particular friend went missing in the later days of March. The last person that she was seen with was Queen Ashby, and with her now being discovered in an untimely situation, the family of her friend was now worried.
Only on Denver 7, Queen's death may be connected to another missing Aurora woman. Cecina Akelom hasn't been seen for more than a month now. Denver 7's Jacqueline Allen found out her family now fears that she may also be in danger.
Cecina's family says they last saw her with her best friend, Queen Ashby, in March. And while police have now confirmed Queen's death, Cecina's family is left with nothing but questions.
I need my daughter. I don't know where she is.
A mother's cry for help. The last time T.G. Gabriesu saw her 19-year-old daughter Cecina was March 22nd. Now she's certain something is terribly wrong.
I just cry every night, every morning, every day.
Last week, family members saw this composite image on the news, a woman whose body had been found in Clear Creek County along a remote highway.
Without even a name. We just put it together.
They immediately knew it was Cecina's best friend, Queen Ashby, the last person they say Cecina was seen with. Queen and Cecina were inseparable, best friends at Overland High School. Queen had just had a baby. Cecina had plans to go to college. That night, Cecina borrowed her mom's car to go out.
And I pray to God that nobody did anything to her. Just please help us.
Help, they say, has been slow coming, in part because Cecina disappeared for a week 3 years ago and came back. But now it's more than a month. The car is still missing. They're just holding out hope Cecina is still alive.
I can't tell you what I feel in my stomach. Please, I need my daughter back.
Luckily, for the family of Cecina, they wouldn't have to face the same harsh reality. She would be located and found safe. For the detectives, it was a sigh of relief. Now it was time to focus on what mattered most. What happened to Queen Ashby? Now armed with the identity of the victim, the authorities can start taking further steps. They will start the investigation with interviewing friends and family. Luckily for them, it would end with that, because during these interviews, all would be revealed. A couple of friends would tell a tale that on April 1st of 2017, they were all at an apartment located in the 1400 block of Joliet Street, located in Aurora. They would explain that Queen Ashby was in fact there, accompanied by a group of friends. They would explain that on this night, they had gotten together to party. Not the type of party where you play music and dance, but the other type. You know, the type of party where you all get together and go up. Witnesses would explain that at some point in that night, a guy had pulled a firearm. At the moment he pulled it, the object of attention was Queen. Several witnesses would account that he pulled it, he placed it on her temple region, and then he let it go. They would also explain that at that moment, the party was over. Everyone cleared out. Now armed with eyewitness testimony, the story seemed to have been told. Kind of, because there was one big problem missing. At the time of the incident, there are no reported 911 calls. No one even attempted to contact EMS. This would lead the authorities to believe that the full story hadn't been told and they were definitely hiding something. But although that was the case, they now had enough for a warrant. The person in question was then 21-year-old Sheree Butler. It wouldn't take long for the authorities to catch up with him. Days later, he would be arrested in the 4100 block of South Mobile Way. Upon his arrest, he would be transported to the interrogation room. But upon entering that room, he would immediately lawyer up. He didn't want to talk. Now, you would think with the authorities having eyewitness testimony that he's the culprit, it was case closed. They had nothing to worry about. But that just wasn't the case. Because while certain eyewitnesses were pointing the finger directly at Sheree, there was another set of witnesses that were saying the exact opposite. In fact, they were saying she did it to herself. With those eyewitnesses telling a completely different story, a case that seemed to be an easy open and shut just got a little bit harder.
Thanks for joining us this Monday at noon. I'm Britt Marino. Police arrested Sheree Butler just last week. Our Jamie Leary was there for his arraignment at the Arapahoe County Courthouse. Jamie, I understand you spoke with his parents.
Both of his parents were in court this morning. He's just 21 years old, so they're obviously distraught over this. But I talked to them outside of the courtroom. They didn't want to talk on camera. They said they extend their deepest condolences to Queen Ashby's family. And his father said what he wants people to know that hasn't been reported is that his son turned himself in. Now, police believe that Butler killed 20-year-old Queen Ashby, but they haven't released any details as to how she was killed or why. Aurora police named Butler as the suspect last Thursday. That's when they took him into custody. Now, Butler is facing a murder charge. I checked with the courts this afternoon. They say all documents related to this case have been suppressed at this point. So it could be some time before we learn what exactly led to her death. There's a funeral scheduled for Queen Ashby on May 27th. Live in Arapahoe County, Jamie Leary, CBS 4 News.
With Sheree Butler now behind bars, the witnesses are telling conflicting stories. On one hand, we have witnesses that are saying he blatantly did this, but on the other hand, they were saying she did it to herself. Those witnesses would explain that on April 1st of 2017, they were all at this apartment. They would say that while they were all partaking in substances, they would get the crazy idea to play Russian roulette. They say that while they were playing this game, Queen's turn came around, and when it was her time up, well, game over. They were saying that it was merely a game gone wrong, something that they never should have partaken in, but they did. And they claimed that this game ultimately claimed the life of 20-year-old Queen Ashby. Sheree Butler would spend exactly 1 year behind bars before he would have his day in court. But by the time he had his day in court, he had also reached a plea agreement with the prosecution team. I know by now that some people are thinking, why give him a deal? You have several witnesses that are saying he did it on purpose. But on the other hand, you have other witnesses saying it was merely a game and merely an accident. You want the truth? The truth is that the prosecution team got scared. They were scared that they couldn't secure a conviction for the charge of murder. When you have witnesses saying he blatantly did it, and then on the other hand, you also have witnesses saying it was a game, that type of information would only confuse a jury, and it would most likely end up in a hung jury. We also have that one elephant in the room, the fact that they all got together to go up, partake in substances. And when you're under the influence, your eyewitness testimony isn't deemed credible. So instead of trying to take it to trial and battle it out, the prosecution team would offer him a plea deal. And in this plea deal, he was allowed to plead guilty to second degree. Along with this plea deal, he would receive a sentence of 20 years behind bars. That's it. 20 years. 20 years in exchange for the life of Queen Ashby, which introduces a new question. If this truly was a game gone wrong, then why plead guilty? If you weren't the one who committed the act, then why accept 20 years? But that's not it. After whatever transpired in that apartment on that night, Sheree Butler stayed behind. His girlfriend then went to the store. She bought duct tape, kitchen gloves, and cleaning supplies. His girlfriend says that she was basically acting on his orders. She didn't know what happened, although she does admit to seeing Queen's body in the apartment later that night. Sheree Butler then double wraps her, drives her 30 miles outside of Denver, and dumps her in a rural area. If that's not enough to prove he's actually the one who did it, then I don't know what is. The actual name of Sheree Butler's girlfriend was never released. I do know that she was charged with accessory after the fact, and she was due to be in court, but they never updated that sentence. So I'm guessing she most likely got a slap on the wrist. Was this truly a game that went wrong, or is Sheree Butler responsible? I guess we'll never know. I will say this, that everyone who knew and loved Queen Ashby would testify that Queen was terrified of weapons and that she would have never partaken in that game. Witnesses also say that Sheree Butler was known for going up and pulling out his weapon, and in fact on a few occasions he was threatening. What do you guys think? Tell me in the comments below. Do you truly believe that this was merely a game gone wrong, or did Sheree Butler intend to do what they say he did? There were multiple witnesses that said they saw that weapon in his hand before she hit the floor. And the witnesses who were saying that this was a game, well, they were his close friends. At the end of the day, that plea agreement was no more than a win-win. It was a win for the defendant, but also the prosecution team, because a conviction is a conviction. And sadly, prosecutors don't care how they receive that conviction, as long as they get it. If you ask me, justice wasn't served. But again, that's my opinion.
Hey everybody, it's Queen, aka I Be The Royalty. I just wanted to make this video for my birthday today, before my party tonight. I just wanted to let you guys know my birthday address is 12370 East Kepner Place, and the party starts at 9:30. But we're going to the hookah, Sam Hookah. Woo! You already know. But don't come empty-handed. Show your girl some love. I just hope y'all show up. I love y'all. Peace. Peace.
Rest in peace, Queen Ashby. Thank you for being a light for others.